The gates of Buckingham Palace may look calm, but behind them, tension is reaching a breaking point. King Charles is just days away from a decision that could define his leadership, his legacy, and the very survival of the monarchy. So, here's the situation. King Charles is days away from a critical decision that could define his leadership and legacy, whether or not to meet face-to-face with Prince Harry during his upcoming trip to London. But this isn't some warm reunion between father and son. This is a political chess match, and Charles knows he's playing against someone who might be wearing a microphone under his shirt. The rumor that Harry might be secretly recording royal interactions has been circulating for years, but it's suddenly back in the spotlight. Whispers from Buckingham to Montecito suggest senior royals now see every interaction with Harry as a potential PR trap. And Charles, he's not picking up the phone, not because he's being cold, but because he's being cautious. One private call could become a public scandal. One hug could be spun into a headline, and one wrong move could hand Harry and Meghan their next Netflix storyline. Now let's be real. Harry hasn't exactly helped himself here. This is the same guy who flew in last time for a 12-minute meeting with Charles at Clarence House and didn't even give a heads up before the flight. The king's schedule was thrown off, the meeting was awkward, and when Harry left, the palace scrambled to do damage control. Since then, Charles has reportedly drawn a firm line. No solo meetings, and definitely no private conversations without a witness in the room. But here's the kicker. Even if they did agree to meet, there's a catch. Would Harry be willing to be searched before walking into the room? That's the question making the rounds among royal aides. We're talking pat-downs, metal detectors, basically royal airport security. Because let's face it, there's a very real fear that Harry might try to capture audio from the meetings. Now, not necessarily for malicious reasons, but maybe for evidence, for clarity, or, let's be honest, possibly to use later. And Charles, having lived through the Diana media wars, isn't walking into that trap again. But here's the other layer of this. Camilla is reportedly not having it. She's been vocal behind palace walls, pushing back against any softness Charles might feel toward his younger son. Her concern? That Charles's sentimental side could be weaponized. That if Harry gets even an inch, Meghan will turn it into 100 miles. And with Netflix watching every royal move like it's their final season of The Crown, the stakes couldn't be higher. At the core of all this is trust, or more specifically, the complete collapse of it. Harry hasn't apologized. He hasn't walked back his claims about racism. He hasn't withdrawn the accusations against Camilla, Catherine, or William. So when Charles looks at his son now, he doesn't just see family, he sees risk. The kind of risk that could blow up the monarchy's already fragile public image. And speaking of public image, it's becoming increasingly clear that Harry and Meghan's strategy hinges on staying in the spotlight. There's talk, serious talk, that this whole push for a meeting might not even be about reconciliation at all. It might just be optics, a stunt, a PR maneuver to generate headlines, keep the Netflix deal alive, and stir up sympathy. Because here's the brutal truth. Harry and Meghan are reportedly on thin ice in Hollywood. Their clout has faded, the media is turning cold, and their big Spotify moment is already in the rear view. So what's left? Royal proximity. Just being in the same sentence as the king. Just enough buzz to keep the money flowing and the cameras rolling. And what better way to create that buzz than to leak a meeting? Whether it's actually happening or not, Charles has been here before. Not with Harry, but with Diana. The manipulation, the media pressure, the emotional blackmail, it's not new territory for him. He's seen how these games play out. And this time, he's walking carefully. That's why there are whispers of a strict protocol if any meeting does take place. No solo conversations, no soft moments, just cold, calculated formality. A private secretary in the room, possibly even a written record afterward. This isn't about family anymore. It's about survival. What's really driving this tension isn't just about a father and son clashing. It's the broader war being waged for narrative control. Harry and Meghan are reportedly in a fight for relevance. Their Netflix deal is said to be wobbling, their media presence thinning out. So what's the perfect fix? Tie themselves back to the royals, the very institution they walked away from. Stir up just enough drama to stay in the headlines without needing to reveal anything new. And now there's the Diana wildcard. Rumors are heating up about a new Netflix-backed project that could center around Princess Diana, and not in the soft focus memorial kind of way. We're talking dramatization, leaning into conspiracy theories, questions around her death, speculation about who might have wanted her gone, and what the palace may or may not have known. And Harry, insiders say he's seriously considering being at the center of it. The idea reportedly pitched as the ultimate card, Harry's last chance to secure a long-term media future. And who else might be pulled into it? His uncle, Earl Spencer. Yes, the same man who stood at Diana's funeral and blasted the royal family in front of the world. If this project goes forward, it won't just be a tribute, it'll be a nuclear option. The kind of documentary that reopens decades-old wounds and reframes history through Harry's lens. For Charles and William, that's not just hurtful, it's threatening. William, in particular, has always been fiercely protective of his mother's legacy. He doesn't want her memory twisted for commercial gain. And for Charles, the idea of his own son using Diana's death as leverage in a streaming deal is almost too much to process. Camilla knows it too. For years, she was painted as the villain in Diana's story. The other woman, the homewrecker. She clawed her way out of that narrative with careful public positioning and undeniable loyalty to Charles. But one Diana documentary, with Harry's voice front and center, and all of that progress could be undone. And let's not forget the deeper paranoia, that Harry isn't just seeking closure or truth, but leverage, that this Diana project could be used to force the royals to the table. Meet me, or I go nuclear. That's the underlying fear. And with crisis talks reportedly happening behind closed doors in Montecito, it's not just gossip, it's strategy. Harry and Meghan need a win, and Charles is in their line of fire. So now the royal team faces an impossible dilemma. If they ignore Harry, they risk him escalating. If they meet with him, they hand him footage, quotes, even body language to spin. Every option comes with a cost. Every move could backfire, and the clock is ticking. The palace has learned to read the media like war maps. Every article, every leak, every photo op, it's all part of the same battle. That's why behind the scenes, royal advisors are urging Charles to stay silent. No comments, no confirmation, no energy given to the speculation, because even denying a meeting gives the story more oxygen, and they know Harry's team thrives on oxygen. But Harry's pressure campaign isn't just about the monarchy, it's about Hollywood. His image there is fading. The industry that once embraced the Sussexes is moving on. Their podcast deal collapsed, their brand deals aren't making noise, and even sympathetic insiders admit they're running out of stories. That's why the royals are still Harry's biggest asset, whether he loves them or not. The possibility of Harry recording Charles isn't a conspiracy, it's a real concern. Senior courtiers are convinced any unsupervised moment could be repackaged and weaponized. And it's not paranoia, it's policy. That's why there's talk of extreme vetting. No electronics, no private space, maybe even a sweep of the room beforehand. Because Charles isn't just protecting the crown, he's protecting himself. William's stance is even firmer. He reportedly refuses to be in the same room with Harry without a buffer. That's not coldness, it's self-defense. Harry's accusations, especially around racism, still hang in the air with no resolution. No apology, no clarification, just silence. And in that silence, tension festers. William doesn't trust that anything he says won't be twisted, misquoted, or clipped into a viral headline. And Camilla, she's no longer just the supportive wife. She's a fortress. She's lived through the worst of public opinion, clawed her way out of it, and she's not about to let Harry drag her name back through the dirt. Her influence on Charles is stronger than ever, and she's reportedly one of the main reasons he hasn't already caved to the emotional pull of a father-son sit-down. She sees the playbook. She knows the cost. But Harry's moves aren't just strategic, they're desperate. Sources close to Montecito say the Netflix deal could hinge on what he brings to the table next. And what better card to play than Diana? She's timeless, she's untouchable, and she still sells. If Harry positions himself not just as her son, but as her unfinished legacy, he becomes relevant again. Even if that means dragging up decades-old pain. Even if that means turning grief into content. And that's the tragedy here. This isn't just a family falling apart. It's a brand imploding under the weight of public performance. Harry wants to be heard. but the way he's going about it makes real reconciliation almost impossible. Charles may still love his son, but love isn't enough when the stakes are this high. This isn't a normal family dispute. It's a constitutional hazard. At this point, even if a meeting does happen, it won't be real. It'll be theater. A handshake for the cameras, smiles for the headlines. But under the surface, the damage is done. Trust isn't just broken, it's shattered. And unless something radical shifts, Harry will keep pressing, the palace will keep dodging, and the cycle will continue. Because in the end, the real tragedy isn't that Charles won't see his son. It's that he can't. Not safely. Not honestly. Not without wondering if the next time he speaks to Harry, the whole world will hear it too.